Alright, since I haven't done a video in a while, I was trying to figure out an idea to come up with today, and I was going to do it more or less on how to create new habits, maybe transformation and stuff like that, and I'll probably add some of that into it too. But I don't know, like spiritual stuff has been starting to come up a little bit lately too, because I feel like we're so focused on things that go on outside of us that we never really pay attention to what's going on in our heart and our soul. And, some of the stuff we've been told our whole lives that God's outside of us, which He probably is, but He's also inside of us too. If He created us in His image, well, then we're part of Him because it's part of His image. And I feel like sometimes we forget that. Like we idolize Him, which we should. But we also have to realize that with His help, her help, whichever you want to call it, the universe help, whatever your creator is, or whatever your beliefs are, but that source can, if you ask it questions and you ask it for guidance, it will give you answers. It's just that sometimes the problem is when He's trying to give you answers, or she, your logical mind steps in and says, oh no, we got this. Like you ask for guidance and then they try to whisper it to you, and then your mind's like, no, that doesn't make any logical sense, because I keep having an idea just saying screw it and quitting my job, and then trusting this and seeing where it goes more, so I can put my whole energy on here, which I don't, which, but then the logical mind steps in and is like, well, what if this, what if that, what if this, it gives all these reasons why you shouldn't do it logically. But what if that is the thing that you need to do? What if that is God saying you need to do this? And when you have faith, even though all these obstacles are in your way, whatever it is that you're trying to choose to do, say you want to start something new, like a new business, new, anything in your life. Anything in your life that you haven't done before that you're trying to do is new. So it's going to be a different experience. It might be hard. It might be easy. It might be challenging. It might have setbacks. It might not, go the way that you want it to right off the bat. But the thing is to still hold that faith, hold that vision, and learn that it's about the next step. Because I feel like the logical mind wants you to see the outcome. And that if it can't see all the ways to get to that outcome, like before you make that decision, then it tells you, no, I don't know, we don't know. But in spiritualness and in all this guidance stuff, you just have to take the next step that's right in front of your face. And if you don't take that one, then the next one won't be shown to you. So when you can't see all the answers down the road, well, then you say, all right, I'm not going to do it. But what if you just took that one step and then the next step is shown to you? And then you take that step and then the next step is shown to you. So it's almost like a process of faith. Have faith in, if you make that first step, the next step will be shown to you. But not until you make that first step. Until you start that business, start that, maybe nonprofit organization, or new skill you want to learn, or go back to school, or, quit your job, find a different one. I've read several stories of people who were afraid to do something and then finally just said F it and then did it. And then next thing you know, boom, 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 they were right where they needed to be. Like I remember one guy said, this guy was telling a story one time in the seminar where he was just putting in application after application after application, and he just, no one ever called him back. But he hated being at his job so much. He just said finally, screw it, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And he said, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm done. And he quit. And then he said within the next week to 2 weeks, he had people calling him that he put application in 6 months ago. And he said all of a sudden he had four different jobs to choose from. But until he let go and said, hey, you know what, I can't do this anymore, I'm going to take the first step, I'm going to quit. And then he let go of that energy that was holding him back. Because sometimes they say when you're holding on to something that's not meant for you, it creates tension in everything in your life and in everything that you're doing. And when you bring that tension to your life, then you just get more tension of it. And when you finally say screw it and let go, then the energy, you let that go. And that's why I feel like the spirit, like us connecting to spirit, is us connecting to God. I mean, there's all kinds of things, you know, maybe there's angels, guide, you know, like your spirit guides. Like, I've read all about all these things, and I believe they all exist. But I believe that, you know, we all as human beings can connect to that divine source. We all can connect to it through whatever way you want to do it. Not everybody's path to finding that is the same. You know, I meditate, I read books, I try to do stuff that's spiritual. I try to sit here and focus. I pray. I do whatever, you know. That's like my process. But like I've talked to some people that just don't like to meditate, and their process is something else. They like to work out. They like to go into the ice cold baths. They like to do certain things that get them in that meditative state. I mean, I still believe that it's good to meditate because every day, like we're in beta waves, and there's so much, you know, they're at a fast moving rate, where alpha waves is more of kind of the slow waves, you know, and then you kind of shift. But for most people, you know, some people can get to that state without having to meditate. But for me, it's always the breathing. And yeah, for the first 5 to 8 minutes, my brain, my logical mind tells me everything, you know, you can't do this. Nope. It goes crazy because it doesn't want to lose control. Like I remember when I was first being taught how to meditate, it's like the breathing process and the mantra that we used to use like kind of interrupts the brain's logic because it tries to hold on to everything that has meaning in your life. Like there's green walls behind me, there's a, you know, whiteboard behind me, there's movies behind me, there's Funko Pops behind me. Like there's something that gives each thing meaning so the brain knows what it is. So it's like learning words. Like a tree is really not a tree, we just call it a tree because we named it a tree. And then we created a tree, but really it's just the essence of spiritual nature. It's just the essence of energy, whatever it is. And then we give that energy a name. And then our brain holds on to that logic. And then that's what it tries to do. So when you use a mantra, the mantra has no meaning. It's just like a word. It's like Om something Namah. The bija is the middle, that's the seed, which during our meditation we were given our birth information, and then we were, out of 107 mantras, we were given our own personal mantra that we're not supposed to repeat to anybody else because it's us. So it's like Om, personal mantra, bija, Namah, and you continue to say that to yourself, whatever your mantra is in the middle. And then over time, the brain cannot hold on to it because it's like, whoa, this doesn't mean anything. It has no meaning. It's just a sound. It's like a, you know, organic sound of the universe. And then eventually the brain's like, what do we, you know, it slips past the ego, the logic, and then it slips into that gap between worlds where your soul exists. Like when you ask like we were taught to do this thing where you like close your eyes and you ask yourself, who is thinking these thoughts? And whenever I close my eyes and ask that, from like back in the back of your brain, I hear a voice that says, I am. And then that's what they say, is that's your soul coming into your body from behind you. And then when you go to that spot, they're the ones that are generating those things. But you also have the mind, intellect, and the ego, which is keeping you from hearing that little voice in the back of your head. That's why a lot of people say this spirit whispers and the ego screams. The ego is screaming every reason why you shouldn't communicate with your spirit, why you shouldn't have that connection to God, because it wants to keep you in this world. It wants to keep you rooted in the physical plane. It doesn't want you to go to the spiritual plane. But that's all right, because we need the ego, but we need to learn how to separate the two and know which one's talking. Because the ego is there to keep us going what we need to do. So it's not like we don't need it, like we have to conquer it. We just have to learn how to listen to our spirit and how to connect connect with that thing, with that source. Like Wayne Dyer is one of my favorite teachers. He inspired me to do a lot of the stuff that I'm doing today, and sadly he's no longer with us, but he definitely teaches us to connect to that spirit, like to connect to that source inside of ourselves. And when you realize that, that's what it is. And like I remember he said, like, God writes all the books, I'm just here as a vessel. And that's what it is. We're here. We have desires, we have emotions, we have all that stuff. We are here, but we also can connect to that source and bring that source into the world. But we have free will to choose whether or not we want to do that. We're human beings. We have free will. But I feel like a lot of the times when you choose to seek the spiritual path is usually when stuff starts aligning in your world and it starts to get better. But most of us are driven by our egos, which is all the outside stuff. And again, nothing wrong with that. It's all part of the whole. I mean, we're left and right, front and back, up and down. We have to have all these dichotomies to understand the other. If we only had left, we wouldn't know what right was. If we didn't have up, we wouldn't know what down was. So we have to have all these dichotomies to, complete the whole. But we also have to learn how to, maybe, what's the word I'm thinking of? Merge them together and use them complementary to each other and understand them. Just like, like shadow work, we have to accept there's parts of us we don't understand, that we might not like. But the question is, just because you have an urge doesn't mean you have to act on it. We all have good and bad thoughts. We all have positive and negative thoughts, but which one are you going to act on? Which one are you going to choose? I try to choose the best one at most times. I try to choose the better one. But if I don't and I mess up and I make a mistake, well then, hey, you know what? I try to learn from it. And I feel like that's what spiritual growth is. That's what growth is that saying, hey, you know what? I made a mistake. All right, how can I do it better that time? And like Wayne Dyer, that's where I got a lot of this from, was him. He always used to say, I'm not perfect, but I'm better than I used to be. And we always think that we have to be perfect to be accepted, or perfect to be, feel good about ourselves. I feel just do whatever it is that you feel compelled to do and try to do the best. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying go do whatever you want and you'll get away with it or anything, but you know what I mean. Hopefully, you're not compelled to do bad stuff or evil stuff. But I just feel like when I make a mistake or do something stupid, I try to learn from it. And now again, and that's what they say, is that we have these lessons that we came here to learn in this lifetime to do better. But we also, like Tony Robbins always says too, is that part of that is we're all equal as souls, but we're not equal in the marketplace. So if we want to get somewhere different, that's why I was kind of like going with the habits and stuff, was learning how to stack them on top of each other to get to a different, goal or outcome. If that's what you choose to do, if that's what you're choosing to do. And, what did it say here? I always like to have some things. I don't like to set these up and go they're gonna go, my videos are gonna go step after step after step. I always try to come on with ideas and just kind of go see where it all goes, because I have read so many books and took so many classes on all this stuff that it just kind of, the knowledge is already in here. So I'm just trying to get the idea to see where it flows, because like Wayne Dyer was saying, he just kind of opens the vision. Like he used to do, the first thing he would do when he was writing a book is he would do the cover first. And then he would set the cover in front of him where he could see. And then he would say, God, show me what you want me to write for this book. Because he felt like God also gave him the, idea for it in the first place, because that's what his soul wanted to create. And then he would just write it. And now, did he always think that way? Of course not. Because a lot of the stuff we learn when we're younger, especially in the West, has nothing to do with our souls. I feel like sometimes they try to keep us from learning about our souls and our connection to this spirit, because it's so powerful when we learn how to use it, that they'd rather keep us all functioning in the ego mind. because even though, it may get stuff done from time to time, it may lead us in directions, and it may even, but it also can take over our lives, and it also can stop us from doing stuff because it gives all the reasons why we can't do it. And then it yells at you and tells you that you can't do it. I mean, God, I listened to it for years. So again, that's some of the things that kept me from going on here. What if this person doesn't like what you have to say? What if this? And I finally had to realize that none of that matters. Now, I hope people that watch this are getting something out of it. That's what I hope. And if you like me, awesome. And if you don't, well, fine. There's plenty of people on here that you can go listen to. I'm just trying to do something that I feel compelled to do in my spirit and my soul, is to teach this stuff, talk about this stuff, get it more readily available, because it's so much more powerful when you start to create from the inside out instead of the outside in, and judge your value, your beliefs from everything that someone else is saying. Even though I'm saying this, but you still have to make a choice whether it resonates with you or not. So again, I'm not saying those people shouldn't be doing what they're doing, because everybody does. Not everybody's on the level at this point. It took me years to get to this point. I didn't believe in anything when I was in my low 20s. I didn't start believing in spirit, God, anything until like my mid 20s. And then it was like, and even at, like I was telling my friend the other day, like, the Book of Five Rings, if people don't believe, they're not going to be shown the way, and that's fine. That's on their decision to whether or not they want to open up to an opportunity or open up to an idea. And that's what I had to do. Like, when I didn't believe in any of this stuff, the spirit, I just didn't look into it. And then I had a friend that was, showed me the Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. And then I read that book, and my first thought was, it sounds like a good idea. It sounds like a concept. I don't know if I believe it or not, but it could be true. And it was like, as soon as it said it could be, like I gave the possibility that it might be true, the door was like open a crack. And then I was led to a different book, Quantum Healing by Deepak Chopra, because I had a lot of health issues when I was low. I had panic attacks and stuff, and my mind was going crazy. And then, this is a good story too. Like, my friend told me to read this book, Quantum Healing. He said, I think it'll help you. So I was going to get my school books, and I went to Barnes & Noble. And the Quantum Healing book, I saw it. It was $25, and I was like, man, I got to go get my books. I was like, I'm just not going to be able to read it right now. So then I go to the school to get my books, and I get all my textbooks, and then all of a sudden, I'm standing there in line and just kind of looking around, just like whatever. And then there's this book. There's this thing about this big, like a big container with books in it. And all of them were going like this. And then there was one book sitting flat on top. And it was Quantum Healing for $4. And I looked at it and I started laughing. I was like, looked up and I was like, all right, I guess I have to read this book. So I bought it and I read the book, and when I read about how the mind and body are connected, and that the mind can create symptoms in your body that are made because you believe it, and it was like, whoa. And I'll tell one story out of it too. Like, Deepak said when he was younger, he was dealing with a guy that had multiple personality disorder, and when the guy was in one personality, he was allergic to orange juice. But so if he drank orange juice, he'd break out in hives on his things. But if he would change personalities, the other personality was not allergic to orange juice, the hives would go away. So was it the orange juice that made the hives come? Or was it the belief in that personality that orange juice gives him, is he's allergic to orange juice? And I was like, that makes me wonder. Maybe a lot of it is in here. So then I started learning techniques to, like, whenever I would just breathe, like, all right, this isn't real. Because again, my mind, my ego was going so crazy, telling me all these things that weren't true. It made me freak out. And then all the thing then makes you have a panic attack. When really there's nothing going on. It's just your brain's creating all that. And then is it your parasympathetic, sympathetic? Probably your sympathetic. I think that's the one that gets you going. And then next thing you know, all these symptoms come from it. But then as soon as you go, like when I was younger, I would go to the hospital and then I'd feel fine. They'd be like, you're okay. But I didn't know any of that. This was before I read the book. And then when I started reading the book, and then like I took psychology class, and the teacher said the same thing. He said he was having these problems when he was younger too, and it was like I was led to the perfect opportunities to learn and overcome it. Haven't had one in 30 years, because now I knew what was going on in the brain and how it created a panic attack. But then all you have to do is breathe through it and tell yourself you're fine. I mean, that might not work for everybody. I mean, obviously, if you ever have one, you got to do what you got to do, because it is what it is. So I'm not a medical doctor. I ain't telling you what to do. I'm just saying what my experience is that, that was my experience with it, was learning that our minds can create more than we even thought. So, and that's what I'm saying about my videos. I just go off on tangents. I had no idea this was where it was going. I had no idea that it was going to be this long. I was trying to teach you about how to stack habits on top of each other, and like build, have an aim and then just add something little every day. And for me, it was getting back on here and starting to do more videos, and at least putting a little bit of work into stuff every day, and then build that momentum. And that's what happens to me, is I build momentum, I get going, and then something happens and I go back down. So don't be frustrated if this happens to you. I feel like it happens to all of us. But if you want to create lasting change, start little by little and start stacking little stuff on top of each other. Because sometimes we want to get all up there and we think, how the hell are we going to get up there? And it's by stacking every little thing. It may take more time, but that's the problem, is we got to go faster. We have to do it this. And yes, it's okay to have that, to maybe put that emphasis on doing something more. But you also need to relax and focus and get connected to whatever it is inside of us, the Spirit, God. Ask for the answers to be shown to you. Ask and you shall receive. There are no empty words in that phrase. I'm telling you, every time I start to ask, stuff just starts coming to me. I before I did this video, I asked, show me what you want me to talk about today. And guess what? It wasn't what I was trying to talk about. So again, that's the whole thing, is to get here, at least be present, at least show up to whatever it is that you're doing. You never know what it's going to be. I tell myself something, I'm too tired to do something. Well, you know what? Try it anyway and see what happens. There's always an excuse that we tell ourselves not to do something. What if all those excuses are wrong? What if they're not? I believe most of them are. I believe it's that thing trying to keep us safe inside our head, when the whispers from the back are saying, no, you got this, you can do it, just start slow, go little by little, step by step, keep going. And that's what I always try to say, is do that little by little. And when you have bad days and when you have setbacks, that's okay too. It's part of being human. It's part of the growth process. It's part of learning. So at least, do something to better yourself. And if you have setbacks, that's okay too. Just get back to doing it. Get back on the horse, like they always say. Get back on the wagon. So, anyway, that's my message for the day. Like and subscribe if you liked it. I wish you all the best, and thanks for watching. Bye.